Hi guys, welcome to the new season debate. This is part 3. If you haven't seen them already, check out part 1, which is about the summer transfer window, and part 2, which is about Louis van Gaal and his squad. Part 3, we're looking towards Spurs, towards our first 11s and kind of what our predictions are for the coming campaign. Our starting 11 at the moment, we touched on it in part 1. Ander Herrera, for me, he has to be in the starting 11. Formation-wise and 11-wise, how do you see us shaping up? Who wants to go first? Talk to me. Jay, go on.
You mentioned the formation earlier on, Jamie. 4-2-3-1. I think that could be our sort of formation. I think because we've got Schweinsteiger, we've got Schneiderlin, we've got Carrick. I can see us having 2 holding midfielders. We've got the likes of Mata, you've got Depay, and you've got another Herrera, most probably, and then off Rooney. I think that could be our formation. I know someone's going to have to miss out. One of the midfielders of Schneiderlin, Carrick or Schweinsteiger's going to have to miss out. There's going to be a struggle to accommodate everyone. You know, someone like Ashley Young or Fellaini probably won't make the cut, but that's what I see us doing, a 4-2-3-1.
I agree, mate. Yeah, I think a 4-2-3-1, and I agree it'll be 2 holding midfielders. And I think from what we've seen on the tour, the fullbacks are going to be pushed right forward. Those 2 holding midfielders are just going to try and prevent anything getting towards like our own goal. You're going to see an attacking 3, obviously behind Rooney more than likely. I think he's going to play Memphis central. I think he's going to play Mata on the right or in that right sort of channel. He's not a right winger, but I do like him in between those lines. He's asymmetric to your traditional winger if you play one on the left. And I think, although I don't want him to, he's probably going to play Ashley Young on the left. I wouldn't mind seeing Pereira or Januzaj, but it's too early, I think, for those, especially with the minutes that they both had on the tour. So it's probably going to be Young, Memphis, and Mata behind Rooney. I reckon Schweinsteiger misses out because he hasn't actually looked up to speed yet. So I would expect Schneiderlin and Carrick, although I wouldn't be amazed to see Herrera as one of those 2, maybe alongside Carrick, and bring the newer signings in later on. And the defence, I think it's going to be Blind, which is mental.
Do you think Rojo would have been starting if obviously he didn't have the Copa America? And
yeah, I think he probably would. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Jay?
Yeah, I think he probably would because he loves a left-sided central defender, and I think Rojo is probably the real deal as a central defender, whereas Daley Blind really isn't. I personally would like to see 4-3-3, and the reason is if you play 4-2-3-1, which you probably will, Schweinsteiger and Carrick, for me, one of them has to be dropped because I know they're holding and the defensive players, and I take your point about stopping goals, but I think you need one of them to be able to get into the box, and Schneiderlin can definitely do that. He certainly did it in the first game. So I'd like a 4-3-3 with Schweinsteiger, Schneiderlin and Carrick, and then you would have...
Herrera has to be starting.
Well in that case...
He's the only player that we have in there. Carrick, Schneiderlin are very the same, very similar. Then Schweinsteiger, although he's not similar to Carrick and Schneiderlin in the way that he plays, he doesn't move forward as much with the ball. And Herrera, for me, gives us someone that is going to mix that up.
It was only the first performance, first game that does it was Club America, but I just saw in Schneiderlin, again, it's a snapshot, but a complete midfielder, so he could defend, he could get into the box, he made some runs. I mean, Herrera, in theory, should be able to do that, but I remember we asked Van Gaal about it after a game, I can't remember, towards the end of the season, when you still had a chance of winning the title, could he be that sort of box-to-box midfielder? And he's a little bit...
We still had a chance of winning the title?
Well, he had to go to Chelsea, and City were playing on the Monday, and they actually lost, and it was sort of a little, it was a little bit tenuous, but that was how we put the questions to anyway, try and get a story.
It was before the Swansea game.
Just before.
It was after the Burnley game, actually. It was a disaster as well. The player I'm really looking for, I think it's fascinating for United this season, is Schweinsteiger, because if he works, then United should work properly, shouldn't they? But will he work? We don't quite know.
Well,
but
I think him and Carrick are probably it's going to be him or Carrick, I think, because I think he said Carrick's got 12 months left in him as a first choice, first team player. So literally the days are numbered there for Carrick. The days are lightly numbered as well for Schweinsteiger as well. So I think what you might get from one of them is that one of them might partner Schneiderlin, or one of them might partner Herrera, and be that leader that we need in midfield. Because Carrick's a great leader, I think. He's not the vocal leader, but I think he keeps everything settled and calm, and I think he leads a lot by example. And I hope him or Schweinsteiger are probably in every game probably not together though.
The thing is as well though, with Carrick having injury problems last season, question marks over Schweinsteiger, we've got games in Europe this season, it could be quite easy to accommodate everyone.
Yeah, you could rotate through them, no problem.
If you
it
get
could
through.
work.
I'm looking.
Or Europa League or something.
We'll go into that.
Let's not go down that road again.
I do think Pereira and Januzaj. I don't think we're going to sign a marquee player like Bale or anything. I know we'll try to. I could see us throwing out a few huge bids towards the end of the summer. But I think with Di Maria leaving, Memphis has got a great opportunity at Manchester United to become one of our game winners. But I think Pereira and Januzaj as well, they could push each other to hopefully replace that position in the team where Di Maria is going out. So I'm hoping to see big things from
Van Gaal's
because
got
I think
previous as
they're
well
very,
for
very
throwing
good.
in very young players and giving them full seasons when they, maybe weren't ready.
Pereira's showing, like, he did it at the Under-20s World Cup, was it? He's shown glimpses
Good
for
on
us
tour,
in the
wasn't he? I thought
pre-season.
really good.
And he's kind of taken a responsibility on that. I can go on and push on here. So, and he's signed his new deal as well. So that's a very exciting one for me. Gonna wrap it up very shortly. Last question to everybody. We'll start with you, Jamie. What is success for Manchester United this season?
Winning a domestic cup and still having a proper chance of winning the title when it gets to the business end. So they've got to be challenging Chelsea or whoever it is and winning a domestic cup.
I don't give a shit about the cups, really. I want to see us push all the way for the league. I want 2-3 games left to go in the season. I want to be question marks over whether we can win it or we are in that mix still. If we don't win it this year, I don't think that's failure. I don't think it's success if we come second or third. There's going to be shades of grey and these things are going to happen in the season which will dictate whether it's success or failure. I do want to see us push on into the latter stages of Europe. I think success would be getting to the semis. I think minimum expectation is probably the quarters, which I think is achievable for us.
Put a position on the league.
For success, challenging to the end. I can come second if
Where
we
do you
pushed
think we'll
it.
finish at the moment?
I think we will definitely finish top 3. I think with a couple of key signings, we can smoke it.
Go on, Jay.
I think being there or thereabout in April or May, I think that would be a successful season. I know you say you don't care about the cups, but I'm with Jamie. I think if we won the FA Cup. I think if we won the FA Cup, that'd be a great achievement. I missed that. I missed the sort of.
Been how long? 11 years.
Yeah, it's
Well,
been
it
a long
would come
time.
in 4th and winning the FA Cup do us.
I personally, for me, I think that's a good season.
I think finishing 4th. Obviously, you could finish 4th and be 3 points off the top.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have to be in with a sniff of winning that league title. If we don't, then it's a failure.
Yeah, if it's sort of over or more or less looks over by January, that's not really great.
And I think as well for the competition that we've got, I know a lot of people. I've been asking for predictions and stuff when they're speaking to fans and stuff on tour, and they've been saying we expect Arsenal to finish ahead of us, and it's like,
No, forget that.
if that's what you're saying, then that is a big failure on Louis van Gaal's behalf for me, because we need to be pushing Chelsea. I think Chelsea at the moment are still ahead of us until we find a centre half, get our keeper's position nailed down. But I think for me, Petr Cech signing for Arsenal kind of papers over the cracks a little bit with some of their players that they're missing. And I think if we can get our centre half position sorted and David De Gea stays for another season, let's say, then we have to be challenging for that title and finishing top 2, in my opinion. Champions League, it's difficult to say. It's difficult. Look how we've gone out in recent years,
Very true, but I think quarters is very attainable.
Yeah.
Typically, we've got the new format, so there's going to be a champion in every single pot, the way it's now worked out. So we're pot 2 at best if we get through, which means that you're going to end up with Munich or Barcelona or someone of that ilk in your group. Now, typically, it's always them 2 big clubs go through, and then it's like an Olympiacos, or it's a Rosenborg, or it's a someone really, really average. There's always a whipping boy in a team.
Yeah.
There's always that Eastern Europe could be a bit tricky. But for the most part, those top 2 teams, they always go through. And in recent years, we've even blooded youngsters in those last 2-3 games of Champions League because we've got our 10 points, so we're through. So I expect with the squad that we've got, should we get through the qualifier, which I expect us to do, that we get through that first group stage, the first knockout stage, and then we're in the quarters. And then it's just a bit of luck. To get into the semis and to progress from the semis, you've got to have a serious team and you've got to have a serious amount of luck. But quarterfinals, you can get through to the quarters fairly simply, I think.
I just want to remind everyone in Europe what we're about again. We're back in Europe. Just don't want to embarrass ourselves, you know, put on some good performances and just make everyone remember what we're about.
Did you give me a position?
Yeah, I think I said fourth in the FA Cup would be for me a success, but I think we should be there or thereabouts. Like you say, you don't know what positions mean in terms of points and what have you.
That's sitting on the fence.
But no, I think
Get off.
I think second place.
Yeah, second.
That's a success.
I personally think whether it's this season or next season, Lou Van Gaal will bring the title back to Old Trafford. And he'll win a European Cup in his time.
Well, which season though? Which season though? Is it?
I'm just throwing it out there.
This season
Anyway,
or next season? Which season?
We're going to win the league, apparently. Guys, make sure you subscribe to Full Time Devils. Like the video. Get your comments in below. Where do you think we're going to finish? Who's in your starting 11 for the game against Spurs? Who do you want to see United sign? Check out Jamie Jackson on Twitter. Howson, give him some abuse. Jay
You said Johnny Evans was going to be captain this time last year. I just thought I'd put that on.
It wasn't this time last year.
It was.
It was last week. We're out of here.
One interesting thing is some of these players we discussed, he's almost replacing the signings of last summer. So Di Maria's going, Depay comes in,